I'm sure that there's a huge difference between seeing something or seeing a demo and thinking, oh yeah, that's simple user interface, I could do that, versus knowing what you should actually do to make it,
Right.
to get the end result. Like somehow this is not always captured.
Well, you can always recreate one element, right? And that is
Mhm.
easy. It's the
Yeah,
whole kit and caboodle of any SaaS product you're buying. You can probably strip away certain things and recreate them, but trying to put it all together takes a lot of time and upkeep. And the
yeah.
maintenance, I think, is something that people really take for granted. You can create all the tools, but they do have to get maintained. Sometimes you have to leave things to the experts, right? And everybody's an expert in their space, and you weigh the pros and cons of investing that money. And ultimately, it can be scary, but also if you can't sell the value of your product, you have other issues, right?
That's
So
right.
if you can figure
Yeah.
out that side of things, you shouldn't be too concerned.
Olga, welcome to Product Growth Stories. So happy to have you on the show. So you are the CMO of Salescreen. I'd love to just dive right in. Like, what is it that Salescreen does that's unique?
So we're known for sales gamification.
Yeah.
And basically what that means is we help sales leaders get consistent sales performance out of their teams. So solving that daily grind motivation, making sure we're tying that to all their numbers and just
Yeah.
helping them know that their number is coming. They're going to hit quota.
Yeah. Love it. And I know, in fact, I know some folks whose business it is just to join other companies and help them start to have sales competitions and just to increase sales. So it
Right.
obviously works. So many people do this. How did you like, is there a specific area that you find where you find more customers? Because or does this work for anybody with with a sales organization?
I would say high velocity sales teams. So people
Yeah.
who are running a lot of the same activities over and over. So we work with a lot of call centers in the tech space with SDRs, the
Mm.
insurance space, just working on selling policies, things that are mundane on the daily basis, but need to get done to make sure that you kind of hit that end goal is where we shine.
Yeah. I mean, all of sales is a little bit mundane. So
It
I
has its perks too, but yeah, there's
that's
definitely
true.
some daily activities that can be tough to get through.
Yeah. And for it to make sense, I'm just curious, like, like, does it need to be something that closes quickly? Or does this also work for longer term, harder sales that take maybe just think of like enterprise space, for example, you're
Yeah.
going to have a much longer deal cycle. Does it still effective there?
As long as there's activity that needs to build, then we can help,
Yeah.
right? So it really just matters what is the different metrics that you're tracking along the way? What are the KPIs you're looking for? So especially with some of those enterprise sales, I mean, there's a lot of steps that you need to take up until
Yeah.
that. So no problem, and I think
Yeah.
that's, if anything, an even better use case, right? It takes a lot to
Yeah.
get from step 1 to 2 to 3 to 16 and so forth. So how do you keep up the pace? How do you run all of the outreach that you need to keep that deal going?
Love it. And so I'm curious to hear, like, how did you guys first start? Like, how did you start adding your first users versus like, what are you doing now that the business is more mature to really help it scale up?
So our company is based in Norway and was founded in Oslo. And so a lot of the early stages of this company, and we're about 12 years old, was word of mouth. And it
Yeah.
started interestingly as like a texting platform and sort of being able to do outbound via SMS. That turned into a motivation tool of just incentivizing reps to do the outbound. And then that turned into gamification. So
Yeah.
I think the word of mouth spread pretty quickly. It's a very different day and age now. Word of mouth still certainly helps. And that's where we get a lot of our Norwegian customers who have known us for so long. But when you expand into different markets, you really have to change up the tactics. So many more channels.
Yeah. And is there one that you are really bullish on right now in 2026? Like, so many people that I talk to are telling me that they feel like email is more saturated, but at the same time, when things change, if you're not doing it well, it suddenly everything feels saturated. So I'm curious, like for you, what are you finding to be the most effective right now?
I can't give you a silver bullet, right? And I
Yeah.
think that's the tough part with marketing. There's never any one thing. I think it's just how you change up the mix. So I would say emails are still there, but it's not where I'm going to see my conversions that tell me my attribution, right? But I think one of the things we're bullish on now is really shifting our thinking from search to LLM search. and
Hmm.
really feeding the AEO machine and making sure that when people are going out and doing their research now, which we all know they're doing it without telling us, our information is there. But I think the rest of the mix is still around. We haven't really dropped anything. We've just de-emphasized certain things and focused in new places. So I think making sure we are coming up in LLMs when the right questions are being asked is one of the more important things right now.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. At some point, you start to feel like an investment manager.
Right.
You're
Switching up
deciding.
your portfolio.
Yeah. Yeah. Love it. And have you, like, as you've clearly pivoted a few times, how have you like refined the messaging over time?
Yeah. So we've done a couple of ICP switches as well. So every time we do that, we've also had to sort of remessage and reposition and shift with the markets and where, our customers are coming from. I think for us, it's really following the pain point. What are our buyers looking for? What is their
Hmm.
current pain? And how do we speak to that? And making sure that each one of those times you're sort of staying within product market fit, right? So as long as we are solving their problem, the messaging should always be related to just what they're looking for a solution to get, and how do we speak to them and give them information without them needing our product, right? We can always educate them on the tactics. The
Hmm.
product is really just a matter of automating it and making it easier for them.
Yeah. I love this about SaaS because technically you could do any of it by hand. You
Right.
know what I mean? Like you could
Especially
have
now
a
with AI, you
whiteboard
can
and
create our product if you want. Go for it. It's going to take you a lot longer.
yeah. Okay. So this is something I'm hearing a lot that certain types of customers are now more demanding because they, at least on the enterprise side, I think there's more of an expectation that you should be able to do more custom work. Are you finding that for real actual customers that it's changing like what people are expecting? I'm thinking about, we had the SaaS apocalypse, right? That at least on paper made companies less valuable, but I wonder like how's it feel for you as a CMO? Are you feeling this?
Yeah, we definitely get the custom work question a lot. And a lot
Hmm.
of times it's also showing them our roadmap and being transparent about that. And like, this is what we're doing across the board. And in order to be able to do that, we can't do as much custom work as every single customer might want, right? So
Hmm.
we also definitely take some of those things into account, see if it makes sense for the greater good, and maybe bring that into our roadmap. It really comes down to, how big of a deal is it worth it? Do we grow the teams in order to bring on that enterprise client? So it becomes prioritization. I don't know if we're getting it a ton more. What we tend to get is a lot of the small questions and bugs and things like that that they expect to be done right away because okay, every AI can just do everything.
We
Um,
think.
you think, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a speed question, it's a velocity question now.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I see that quite a lot that like customers are changing, what they expect. Are you afraid of people actually duplicating it? Do you think that is like you mentioned it joking around, right? But
Yeah.
do you think this is a real risk for SaaS businesses?
It can be, right? And I think it's a question of can you differentiate and do you have enough knowledge about the space that can't be learned, right? So we've learned our tactics and our motivation techniques and the right emphasis on which ones and the weighting and all that kind of stuff. And that's pretty proprietary. That's really tough to learn again. So I think customers will try, and they absolutely on the enterprise level have the resources to do it.
Hmm.
But at the end of the day, it's also, do you have the resources to do it for every department that's asking for that? And is this a priority for the entire organization? How do you weigh that within your own organization? So there is a risk. It really depends on what your product is and how mainstream is it? And is it super easy to create? Is it, something that can be duplicated overnight? And if it can, in a way, you have to just find ways to differentiate against that. Like, sure, you're going to get a simpler version of what we can do. Here's how much more value you can get from an all in one product.
Yeah, and I'm sure that there's a huge difference between seeing something or seeing a demo and thinking, "Oh yeah, that's simple user interface. I could quickly do that," versus knowing what you should actually do to make it
Right. Right.
to get the end result. Like somehow this is not always captured.
Or
I
you can
yeah,
always recreate one element, right? And that is
mhm,
easy. It's the
yeah.
whole kit and caboodle of any SaaS product you're buying. You can probably strip away certain things and recreate them, but trying to put it all together takes a lot of time and upkeep. And the
Yeah.
maintenance, I think, is something that people really take for granted. You can create all the tools, but they do have to get maintained.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, so I can see how, and I'm just speculating, but I can see how if you're more smaller company, you don't have any resources, this idea of replicating something could seem like great. You're not going to be able to afford it anyway, and this helps you with your more risky, smaller plane close to the ground, survive. And then also enterprises where they have, once the
Right.
licensing fee gets to a couple times the salary, you start to, you're like, that's an engineer. Can't they just
Yeah,
build
yeah.
this? But for everybody else, why would you take it on? Like, why would you do that instead of focusing on growing your own business? This is what I think
Yeah,
keeps
sometimes you have to
every
leave
company
things to the
safe somehow.
experts, right? And everybody's an expert in their space, and you weigh the pros and cons of investing that money, and ultimately it can be scary, but also if you can't sell the value of your product, you have other issues, right?
That's
So
right.
if you can figure
Yeah.
out that side of things, you shouldn't be too concerned.
Yeah. So, okay, can you give me some of the secret sauce or give us some of the secret sauce? Like, what are the things that surprisingly effective for motivating a sales team that you wouldn't think, other than the leaderboard? Like, what else really helps people take action when you wouldn't expect it?
Yeah, and I think, you hear sales and most people think of like the wolf that just goes after it and the hunter, and these
Those
are all
people are
sort of
expensive.
they're expensive,
It's
they
hard to
beat
get
to
the
their
wolf.
own drum, they
Yeah.
and they tend to place themselves on that leaderboard, right? The people who are
Yeah.
always on the leaderboard are always going to be on the leaderboard.
That's right.
And that's not where sales leaders need to focus, right? So, never to say take them for granted, but those are the people who probably don't need as much motivation help. They're clearly self motivated.
Hmm.
So the lower middle performers, those are the people that really find a sweet spot in a variety of tactics, right? So everybody's motivated differently. It depends on what their personality's like. And it's always intriguing to me the types of things that they engage with. Like we have a lottery competition, which anybody can get tickets into. So like as long as you're running a certain level of activity or however you set up the competition, you can participate. At the end of the week, you spin the lottery, which means anybody can win. So, like, the top performer doesn't have an edge. And people really get hopped up on stuff like that, where they feel like, even if I've had a bad week, there might be a chance for me to celebrate, and I can participate as long as I'm running some of that activity that's needed for this competition. Or, like, we have a reward shop, and a lot of times the free rewards are more in demand. So, things like a day off or, you know,
Oh, yeah. You can
right?
buy a
Like,
day off from the shop.
a
That's
week
awesome.
off, it depends how nice your
Yeah.
boss is, or
Yeah. Yeah.
the CEO to do push-ups on the all hands, and so those are
Uh-huh.
always so funny to us to see what customers come up with, and we have some customers that'll put a Rolex in there, and I'm like, "Okay, you're gonna vie for some of these, like, free giveaways, and you could be saving up to go get the Rolex," and, they pick and choose
Yeah.
what they're looking for.
That's interesting. I love that. It's good examples of how there's all these like social things that are exciting that are not necessarily,
Yeah.
a date master or whatever, whatever
Right,
giveaway.
right.
Yeah.
I
A
think
lot.
we take human connection for granted, and a lot of times people just wanna feel connected to their teams. If they can do
Mhm.
something fun, like, have to sing a song on all hands and make a funny event out of it or whatever it may be, like, you just wanna break out of the patterns sometimes
Mhm.
or, see someone's celebration on the TV screen that you forgot they're on the team over in, the East Coast or whatever it may be. So, I think especially with us being hybrid in so many cases, it's just
Yeah.
nice to put some human back in things.
Yeah, I love that. I'm just thinking about all the different people I've known and how what motivated them was always so
Mhm,
unique. So
mhm.
I imagine you really need some kind of buffet, especially a larger company, of
Yes.
different tactics that are going to be exciting. And what do you like? I'm sure you must have, I hope you have this on your website. You must have some data about, if a company is a certain level of qualified, how much does this improve? If you don't have a program or you're doing it internally and it's like one project manager that can't, the juggling on the side, when
Mhm.
you add something in like this that's really dedicated and ongoing, what does that typically do for a sales team's performance?
Yeah, so I talked a little bit about the middle performers. The middle and bottom is where we see the biggest lift. Middle performers, we see an increase of 59% in their performance.
Whoa.
The low is
Yeah.
wild. It's like
Yeah.
127, so you've
Yeah.
really got a lot of opportunity there with your people. So especially if you start from your lowest performers, you have the most to gain there. So that's always really exciting to see. Like they've got the ability, obviously, you hired them for a reason. They just need to pump up on the right activities or whatever it may be. if you get them reaching those KPI goals, the targets are, coming down the line. So we focus on those leading indicators, and those activity levels go up fast. And that's really exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so cool. I'm just imagining that right now. Well, what do you see in terms of like just the future of the company? If you're like looking forward till the next year, like what are you the most excited about what you get to do as the CMO and the product itself?
I think it's AI, right? So
Yeah.
we are now agentic in the product. There's AI behind everything. And it's really getting insights and proactively being suggested actions is so different and so exciting for sales managers, because the last thing you want when you pick up a tool is to have to learn the tool, right? And I
Yep.
think that's sort of the exciting thing about developing products now of, we'll do the heavy lift for you. Like we can see your numbers, we see what's happening. Like
Mhm.
I see John over here is lagging. Let me suggest you set up this achievement that's specifically exciting for him. And the manager can just be like, yep, go ahead, do it. And you're on your way. So it really becomes, everybody talks about the assistant, the sidekick, but in this case, it's very personalized to your team, and it sees
Mhm.
the things that you might not have time to see, or you just aren't in the data enough to capture. You know, Melissa over there had her best week. Let her know. And she'd just be
Yeah.
so excited that you even paid attention. But in reality, it's Scout, like nobody
Yeah.
needs to know that, but it's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, that's excellent. So you're also helping just for the overall sales enablement and those people in sales management roles to know, so they're getting the nudges as well. That's very cool.
Absolutely. And
Very
enabling
cool.
that human to human connection again, right? Because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, that's what we're doing here. We want to make sure that our people are happy and
Yeah.
motivated. So the best thing you can do is get the sales manager out of the grind and out of the annoying one-to-one that's the same thing over and over, and give them some insight that makes their people feel like they're really seen.
I love it. Well, this is such a cool product, and it's a very cool angle on how you're like why you're looking at AI, because I think especially with like remote teams and AI, that it's nice to have
Mhm.
something where the focus is on actually connection. So I love
Mhm.
that. As we wrap up, what other advice could you give other marketers, there's so many SaaS folks that watch this show, so other people who are trying to get their product to really scale and get more people interested? What is the number one piece of advice you'd give them as we wrap up?
I think the tried and true tactics don't go away. And as marketers, I think a lot of us think as psychologists and just really try and get into the psyche of our buyers. Like that doesn't go away. So having core messaging and value prop that is good and you trust and taken the time to think through is how you're going to proliferate all these other agents everybody else is talking about. So you're going to scale by having like a very good core story and a core value prop that sings through everything else. And the channels are just the channels. You're mixing them up as you go. So I think never outsourcing that, not entirely to AI, right? You can get some help,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Got to use your brain, your heart. That's right. Yeah. Well, I
exactly.
love
Yeah,
it. Thank you so much.
absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.